Hello iChurchers, it's Dan Morell here back with another tutorial on editing your iChurch site. We are on tutorial number 21 now folks, so we're very much into the advanced areas of editing your iChurch site. These things you do not necessarily need to know to edit your iChurch site. The first sort of 10 tutorials or so took you through what we think is everything you need to know about editing your iChurch site. If you can do all of those things, then you are doing a great job. The remainder of the tutorials is just little hints, tips, extra bits that do go into a little bit more detail, admittedly, to help you along with adding a few extra bells and whistles to your iChurch site, but also just maybe neatening things up. But as I say, they are a bit more complex, folks, so don't worry if you can't really grasp what I'm talking about. Sometimes I can't even grasp what I'm talking about anyway, so do not worry. But if there's anything you do want to go into more detail on, then do just get in touch. I'm sure we could arrange something. So today we're going to be looking at a couple of bits and bobs and just addressing some minor hiccups that iChurch webmasters or indeed any people who use WordPress may encounter. And it's just because things are a little bit different from Microsoft Word. The saying goes, if you can use Microsoft Word, then you can use WordPress. That is 99% true. And that's one of the reasons that WordPress is so popular, is because it is quite intuitive to use. And it continues to do so, but this thing, one particular issue we're going to look at today is just a little bit different from Microsoft Word, and that's the issue of line breaks. Now, hopefully you'll all know what a line break is. The wording is fairly self-explanatory. But when we're talking about line breaks, we're talking about basically what is in between our lines of text when we press the enter button. It's not what happens when when our sentence spills over into the next line. That's not a line break. It's when we finish our bit of text, finish our sentence, and press the enter button. Now, there are quite easy ways of adjusting that when you're in Microsoft Word. So you can just go ahead and alter that. Of course, this is a tutorial not on Microsoft Word, so if you are not aware of how to do that on Word, then please get in touch with the communications team or somebody who is familiar with Word. I'm sure they can help you out. So I'm just gonna give you a demonstration of what I mean when I'm talking about an issue with line breaks. And so I'm in the classic editor, but the same applies for the block editor and the same fix applies as well. So don't worry too much which you use. So this is just a test page, and I'm just going to demonstrate an example of what I mean by a line break. So I've written a bit of text, I've pressed enter, and then I'm writing a bit more text. The line break is this gap here, this bit in between. And it's a spacing basically, and it most of the time it is a good thing. It's so that it spaces out your information, because the same applies when you put in images as well, or tables and things. So it's generally quite a good thing to have. But for some things, maybe lists, it might be a bit of a pain because it actually maybe spaces things out a little bit too much. And there's a simple fix to this. In times when you want to remove this line break, which is basically an entire line again, so it's like having that text again there. Instead of just pressing the enter key, which I did there, we're actually going to hold down shift and press enter instead. You'll see what that has done is taken our text cursor straight onto the next line. It's not given us a line break. So if I type in text again, you'll see we've got the thing straight on the next line rather than having a gap. So folks, that is the simple fix. That is how we remove spacing after what is effectively a paragraph, because obviously we would want a gap probably between our paragraphs. So that addresses the issue of line spacing. There's another place you can do it. Rather than if you were typing and then pressed shift enter, you can actually rectify old ones. So rather than me having to go like this, so backspace and then shift enter again, Instead, what I could do is go into this text side of things, and this is basically what's called HTML, Hypertext Markup Language it stands for. Don't ask me what that means in detail. I know it as code. Most people know it as code. For iChurch user, that is all you really need to know about it. It's basically the back end. So if we thought of the visual editor or editing our WordPress site as the back end, this is kind of the back end. So this is where we can put in bits of code to do things to our text or our images or whatever that all of these buttons can't do, or can't do quite as easily. So if I went onto that, as you can see at the moment, there's not much difference. But on your average page with images and with text being aligned in different places, this will look a bit more complex than what it does look like at the moment. So that is a pre-warning, and of course we are into the iChurch advanced section, so don't worry if this gets a bit too complicated for you. But you'll see on the visual side, we've got still a gap between our lines, but I can only click my cursor on this line. I can't click anything there. If I click there, it just takes me back to the top line. But we can actually remove this line in the text area because we've got a gap here that we can press backspace on. And when we press backspace, you'll see that line break has disappeared. So that's another place you can do it. As I say, the easiest way is just to hold down Shift and press Enter, and that will take you onto the next line, and that will be nice and easy for you to sort out. If you obviously want to go back to just having normal spacing, then you can just press the Enter key, and that should be nice and simple. So hopefully that has addressed a bit of a potential issue with that some of you may be encountering. The next thing we're going to look at is quite a specific one, and it's specific to the home page or to any page that you have what's called the custom layout applied. So in earlier tutorials, I talked about the custom layout that's on most or all of your home pages. And so the slightly nuanced thing we need to do that's specific to the home page, rather than to edit it, rather than just click on the page name or the edit button, we have to click Edit Custom Layout. So we get sent to this sort of block editor style thing. And as you can see, I'm not going to re-go through any of the things on editing the homepage. You can look at that tutorial in your own time. But when we open up a bit of content, and I mean content as in the element content, I'm just going to add a new one in to demonstrate. When we open that out, we get something vaguely resembling a classic editor. But it's not a full classic editor, folks, because there are lots of things on the actual classic editor that we can't do on here, such as changing colors of text. And I mean, there's lots of other things that are missing as well. The idea of the homepage is to keep it nice and simple. You know, you don't want to be putting tables in or anything like that. Or if you wanted tables, you could just use columns, or you know, there's lots of other things you can add in anyway to help jazz up your homepage. But one issue that I know a couple of people have encountered is wanting to be able to change the text color here. So I can change the text size and the format. I can, use any of these pre-formatted headings, which will just, as you can see, make it a bit bigger. But it's still obviously not the correct color. Well, it might be the correct color for you, but you might want to change the color. And folks, gone are the days of having sort of multicolored websites. When they were first sort of invented, so to speak, websites had all sorts of different colors. Lots of the primary colors and magentas and cyans. Folks, those days are gone, I'm afraid. But if you are wanting to change the color of your text, there is a way to do it in this area. And it's again by going to this text area. And this is readdressing that point that we're going into the back end here, and we can make extra adjustments to our text that we can't do in this area. And indeed, this applies to lots of other things, but I'm not going to give tutorials on using HTML and using code because that is way beyond the scope of what iChurch offers. So we're going to click on the text area here, and you'll see this is where the text gets a little bit different because we've got these kind of bounds around our test button, our test text. And this is simply indicating to the computer, this is how the code works, that we've got a heading 1. So that's nice and easily addressed. And so, folks, this is really going to be the extent of your coding journey with iChurch. As I say, it's really not, it's not a huge necessity for editing your average website. The idea of WordPress and most website providers nowadays is to avoid having to use code. But sometimes you might have to, in occasion, to force something that it doesn't naturally want to do. That's pretty much the brunt of it. And in this case, of course, all we're going to be doing is looking at changing the color of the text. But there are lots of different applications to coding in this context. But as far as iChurch goes, this is pretty much the extent of what we'll be providing to you, because coding is general, it's generic, it's not specific to iChurch, and so you can go and research those things in your own time. But to change the color of the text, we have to change what's called the style. And so we have to put in the style section. And we put this in within these, can't even remember the name of them, but the greater than and less than arrows. Apologies for my layman's terms, folks. For anyone even vaguely skilled in coding, will probably be rolling on the floor laughing at the moment. But we simply type in the word style because we want to be editing the style, and then we put an equals sign. So this is what we want the style to be. And there are lots of different things you can put in here. You can go through alignment and text size and all those sorts of things. We're just looking at color here because this is the main thing we want to change. So then we have to put in some quotation marks. So Shift and 2 for most of you. If you're on a Mac, then I think you'll be pressing Shift something else. It's probably where the @ sign will be. So we can put 2 of them in or just one at a time, but we're basically going to be putting something in between them. So then we have to put in the word color. Apologies, it is American, so do make sure you spell it right. And then we're going to put a colon. Now, the colors we have to choose from, it's basically any color. But there are different ways in which you can address the colors, which sounds like a very strange way of saying things, I know. But you can basically either type in the color, the name of the color. For most common colors, there won't be a problem. You could put in red, you could put in blue, and it would come up. So if I put in red and went back to visual, we'll see now our text is red. If I put in blue, then our text is now blue. So for most common colors, you should get away with just being able to type in the color. Please do not put cyan on a white background, by the way, folks. So you can type in colors. You may be wondering, where on earth can I find this information? Well, it's where you can find most other information, and that is just by Googling it. The website that I find is quite easy in setting things out. It's called w3schools.com. And so I've already been on it today just so I could direct you towards it. And this takes you through a tutorial of colors. So you will see here we've got examples. This is where we could type in the name of the color. So if I click on color names here on the left, these are all the different colors I could type in. And these are not limitless either. There are lots and lots of pages you could go through. But the main other way that we can explain to the computer which color we want is by using this code here. And this is called hex code. If I clicked on this hex bit here, you'll see we can actually just adjust it, and it's basically changing the RGB of our color, which is red, green, blue. As you can see here, red, green, and blue. These are our three primary colors. Hopefully this is harking back to primary or senior school art. We basically change the amounts of red, the amounts of green, and the amounts of blue, and we can create any color in the world. And what this does is creates what's called a hex code. It is short for something which has just evaded my mind at this point. I'm sure it'll be somewhere else on here. But basically, it's a 6-digit or 6-letter, 6-value code with a hash key in front of it, which explains to the computer what our color is. So it's split into basically, just undo that. It's split into 3 sections of 2. The first 2 letters address the amount of red. So most of the time, it's, as you can see, when I'm clicking on here, it changes around. Folks, I don't really know what much of this means, but it works in basically percentages and then letters, and then gets to FF, which means basically the fullest amount of red we could possibly have. And then 0 is no red whatsoever. So obviously all, if we had 0, 0, 0, 0, that is fully black. If we had FFFF, well, I can just type it in here. That'd be 6Fs, that's all of the colors, so that's complete white. And basically everything else is somewhere in between. So it's just a way of explaining to the computer what combination of red, green, and blue we want to create a particular color. Now, most colors, you may get familiar with which colors correspond to which code, and we can simply get this website to do it for us, or indeed there are so much out there that will tell you what colors you can use. So we can either use the names, as you can see here, or we can use the hex code, and we can have a look at it here and adjust it, or we can go to something like a color picker. So this will show us, we can click on whatever color we want. It's given us even different shades here of that color, and we can simply copy this code or just retype it in, and it would reproduce the color for us. So we're clicking on all of these codes, all of these colors, and the code is changing, and all we need to do is simply put in that color. Have a browse around this website in your own time, folks. There's all sorts of stuff you can have a look at. But in principle, once we've got our hex code, or as I said, we can just type in the color, we can copy that and then paste it in here. So our hex code is always the hash key and then 6 letters or numbers, and that is what we do. And then it's automatically put in a semicolon here. We would put that at the end. So we can then click, well, I'll just demonstrate. There we go. The color has indeed changed to the one we had on here. So that's the principles, folks. I know I've maybe breezed through that for some of you, and there's a lot of stuff in there that, as usual, you may not need to know. But this is how we can change color using text, using HTML to adjust the color of our text. Of course, if we want to use a very specific color, and you may want to replicate it across your entire website, then this can be a very useful way of doing that. As always, if you've got any more questions, folks, then do not hesitate to get in touch. You can email iChurch@urc.org.uk and we'll be happy to help. Thanks very much and see you soon.